I'm at Bock Nature Preserve here. It is Wednesday, what is today? Wednesday, January 27th, 2021 here at Bock Nature Preserve. A little bit more than a mile of trails here. And the trails are kind of split up in two loops. So we have a loop through the prairie grassland over here, and then a loop through the forest area on this side. So the forest part, you'll see a lot of maple trees, beech trees, some tulip, black cherry trees. A lot of the maple trees, this used to be a sugar stand, which is an area where they grow maple trees to tap them to turn them into maple syrup. So a lot of sugar maples here. This property is one of Acres properties that they're going to end up sometime between now and 2024. I guess I should mention this is an Acres Land Trust property, but this is one of the properties that they're going to phase out for public. So they'll still maintain the property, and it'll be wildlife preserve, but they're going to not have the trails anymore. You can read more about that on Acres website, but it has to do with accessibility and quality. And so they're going to focus on some of their other properties, improving them and letting some of the lower quality properties go back to nature, or some of the ones that have accessibility issues. So, you know, they want wide trails, large parking lots, so people can enjoy them. But some of the properties, that's just not a possibility. So as I said, there's sort of two loops, and this path here goes right along the edge here where we transition from forest to the prairie area. So I'm gonna go ahead and hike the whole thing. Like I said, it's a little bit more than a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter of trails here. So we'll take this loop here, and then I'll loop around the prairie area, and then I'll head into the wooded area. So hike along here, and this is where to the left you'll enter into the wood loop, and I'll stay here on the right and do the prairie area. But as I see some more exciting things, we'll come back to the video. So there's 3 or 4 of these little posts with wooden boxes attached on the top. The little plaque on it just says that it's an Eagle Scout project and when it was built and who built them. I'm fairly certain that they are bat houses. So why do I think they're bat houses? Number one, they're about 10, 20 feet off the ground. Number two, they're southern facing exposure. And number 3, the little boxes on top are thin, like skinny, with little slits for entrances, right? So it's about the thickness of about 3 sheets of plywood, with kind of the middle sheet of plywood just as a frame. So that tells me that it's probably a bat house. I don't know. If anyone else has any better ideas, let me know, but I'm guessing that it's a bat house there. You can also see, well, it's cold today. It's really cold today. It's in the mid-20s today, but you see here in a lot of places here, you have these clumps of red thorny plants. And those are, at least all the ones I'm seeing, those are multiflora rose, which they can look pretty, but they're invasive. And you can see here how they can interrupt the natural ecosystem, right? The rest of this is kind of this grassland stuff. And so when it's got the ice on it, it's all falling down. But this, you can see all the multiflora rows here that's sticking up, and how it's starting to overtake the land. Yeah, so it's also kind of interesting to note that a lot of the multiflora rows that you see here, not all of it, but most of it is, I don't know, within about 30 feet from the edges of the trail. As you get out to the middle of the prairie here, I don't see as much of it. I'm not saying it's not there, I'm just not seeing it. But it's all here along the edge of the trail. Why is it along the edge of the trail? Chances are somebody was hiking, got seeds on their boot, mud in their seeds stuck in the mud on their boot, and then as they were coming out here, the mud caked off of their boot, and so it started growing, and then it spread out from the edges of the trail. It's not on the trail because you get the foot traffic that would wear it down, erosion, but you'll see it here kind of along the edges of the trail. So that's my guess. How it got here is just, it was on somebody's boot, and that's why you see it along the edges of the trail, and it doesn't appear as prominent sort of in the middle of the grassy part. So here, kind of interesting right here, we've got some hair. This hair, a lot of hair right there. I am not good enough at identifying hair to know what this is, although maybe it's deer. We've got brown and white there. I don't know what kind of hair that is, but got a lot of hair right through here. I don't know. Okay, more hiking. Got to keep moving. It is much colder than I thought. Right, I walked the dog this morning. Didn't feel too bad. I was bundled up appropriately, but now that I'm out here in this grassy area, you've got some wind picking up, but it's just a lot colder than it was in town. So more hiking. Got to keep moving so I can keep warm. So something I just want to point out, this is a good spot to be able to see this. You can see the trail. Hopefully you can see the trail. I can see the trail here in front of me, where I don't know if they mow it or just by use. The grass doesn't grow very tall here, but you see the snow and then the tracks, and it looks like, man, I don't know, if I would guess, since this snow came down, it looks like probably maybe 2 or 3 people have taken this part of the trail before me. It's a little harder to see how many people took the trail in the wooded area, right? Because there's not as much snow on the ground. But I'll tell you, in the stretch between the prairie and the wooded area, you see a lot more activity, right? There's a lot more of the snow is gone. So my guess is a lot of people are coming out here. No, not a lot, but most of the people who are coming out here are probably focusing more on the wooded areas, hiking in the wooded areas, and less so on this grassy part. Like I said, I mean, just looking here, I'm not seeing a lot of separate footprints. It's possible that it was just one person kind of dragging his or her feet, not really picking them up as much. But not a lot of footprints. So since the snow came down, not a lot of human activity out here. Okay. More hiking. So I'm hiking in the wooded part now, and it is just absolutely frigid out today. It's in the low 20s. Less of a wind here in the wooded part, but still a little bit of a wind. With wind chill, man, I don't know what it is, but I drove here, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the hike. I'm probably not going to take very many photos because to take pictures, I got to take my gloves off. And by the time I get my gloves off, camera out, taking some pictures, my fingertips start freezing. So, here's a good spot to look at some tracks. So, looking here at the boot prints, looks like two different people hiking. One person going clockwise around the loop and one person going counterclockwise. Two different sets of boot tracks on here. And then I can't tell, either I think rabbit, some rabbit tracks on there. Rabbit, might be a squirrel, can't quite tell. But yeah, maybe a rabbit came by. Everything out here is also covered in ice right now. So we had a little bit of warm weather, well, cold, and then it warmed up, and then it got cold again. So the ground stayed cold, but the air was warm enough that we had rain coming down yesterday, maybe the day before. But when it hit the ground, everything was cold, and so everything is just covered with a layer of frost. I don't know if you can see the frost on there, or the ice all over that tree there, but I guess I'm about to put the third set of tracks on this bridge as I keep hiking to stay warm. So I want to point out something a little bit interesting. So you can see this tree here still has a couple leaves on it. So it is definitely a beech tree. Pretty young beech tree, but if you look here at the bark on young beech trees is not always smooth. Right? So we don't always see smooth bark on young beech trees, but it's holding on to the leaves. There is no doubt that this is a beech tree, even though the bark is not smooth. Now over here we have a much larger beech tree, and you can tell here because we got the really smooth bark. We also have in beech trees, a lot of people like to carve their initials in them. Because of the smooth bark, I think it gives you a nice canvas to carve your initials. The thing is, once the first person does it, that's when other people think that it's acceptable. If no one does it, most people aren't willing to be the first. But once you get the first person doing it, then other people say, oh, well, someone else did it, I guess I can do it too. So don't carve your initials in beech trees or any trees or rocks. Don't carve your initials in anything. More hiking. So we have here, right here on the edge of the trail, maybe even in the trail, giant rock sunk in the ground. It's pink, right? You see some of the pink. If you scrape away, this was like this, I didn't scrape it away, but you can see you know, it's kind of just rock, kind of greenish gray, but actually underneath there it's pink. Pretty sure this is a piece of granite. So this is, I've mentioned this a couple other times in some of the other videos. It's called a glacial erratic. So as the glaciers built up and pushed their way south, they picked up rocks, sort of tumbled them down. So you'll see kind of these rocks that are more or less smooth, rounded, that don't belong here. They're not native. It's from probably Michigan, Canada, maybe even northern Canada area. Got pushed down here by the glaciers. I want to point that out because the glaciers formed some of the landscape we see here at Bock Nature Preserve. So the glaciers left a couple of sinkholes, and those are now, in some cases, ponds, kettle ponds. Here, oh, well, I see it here. This piece of blue beech or musclewood or ironwood. This one's a little hard to see, but it almost has like muscles. I mean, it kind of looks like muscles here, but anyway. So the glaciers, as they came through, they left some sinkholes, and so we have a couple of ponds. Ponds and lakes that are left over from glaciers are called kettle ponds or kettle lakes. And so there's one here that's pretty big, about 1.5 acres in size, I think. I don't know if we'll be able to see it, but yeah. So the glaciers, they really helped carve out a lot of the landscape here. So you'll see, even though you don't necessarily see, I mean, you don't see the glaciers at all, but you see the evidence of them through these pieces of granite that don't belong and through these kettle ponds. But okay, more hiking. Okay, I want to point out this tree. So hopefully you can see it, but if you look at the bark, kind of the lines made by the bark, you can see that it twists around as you go up the tree. I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but the bark is twisting. And so I've asked a couple people why, and I've done some research on the internet, and there doesn't seem to be a good answer why. This one is a really good example of seeing it. You can see it in other trees, but this one, I mean, this one looks like it probably twists around 3 times before you get up to the branches. So a couple theories. One theory is, just like some people have curly hair, some people have straight hair, some trees twist, some trees don't. Another theory is it has to do with competing for resources, particularly sunlight. So as a spot opens up, it'll kind of turn to get more of the leaves in the sunlight and then keep turning. That answer kind of makes sense, but I don't fully buy it, because I feel like if that was the case, you would see sometimes the tree would twist left and then twist right and left and right. But this one just has purely a counterclockwise rotation. There's never anywhere in the tree where it starts twisting clockwise. It's just counterclockwise the whole way up. So I'm not entirely sure about that, because I feel like if it was for resources, sometimes twist clockwise, sometimes counterclockwise. But anyway, from what I've read, nobody really knows why some trees do it and other trees don't. Like I said, it might just be, you know, some people have curly hair, other people have straight hair. Some trees twist, some trees don't. But this one is a pretty, and I'm hoping it shows up on film here, but pretty good example of a twisting tree. Okay, back to hiking. Okay, I am finishing up the loop through the forest part, coming back here to the grassland area. So now all I have is this more or less straight shot back to the car, and I will be done here at Bock. So this is likely going to be the last video for here at Bock, at least today. I hope to come back sometime, maybe in the spring. It's a little warmer. Get to see some of the wildflowers out here in the prairie area. But even though it is incredibly cold today, it was a good hike. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and thanks for taking a hike with me.